Hi, I'm Robert Perkins, the immigration professor. Hello and welcome to my lecture today. It's going to be a two-part video series on visas called H-1B visas. The H-1B is the most common type of work visa that companies use to bring people over to the United States. It's also the best visa for a lot of reasons. This is going to be a two-part series. The first part is going to be kind of the mechanics and legal requirements of the H-1B. And the second part is kind of describing why this visa is the best visa, and even still in a bad economic times, why it's still the best and most viable way to bring somebody here. So let's start out with the legal requirements for the visa. By the way, you can find all my videos on my website at www.immigration-professor.com. Or if you need specific advice about H-1B visas, whether you be an employer or an immigrant employee from another country, please call my office at 310-384-0200. So let's talk about the legal requirements for the visa. There are, in essence, 3.5. The first one is that the job offer, the job that's being offered, must require a degree. And I guess I'm going to back up a little bit and go over all of these parts. First of all, there has to be a job offer. A lot of times I have clients coming into my office and they say, well, I'd love to get an H-1B. Let me get an H-1B and then go find a job because I'll have employment authorization. Well, unfortunately, the system doesn't work that way. That employee will need to go out and find a job offer in a job that relates to their field. And so you can't just get the visa first and then the job offer. The company has to sponsor you. And it has to sponsor you in a job that's what's called a professional job. And the requirement for that is that the job has to require a bachelor's degree. In other words, if you are a legal secretary and you're going out to get a job, that job does not typically require that you have a 4-year bachelor's degree. However, if you're a civil engineer, for example, and you're going out and getting a job, that job does typically require that you have a degree. So that's the first requirement, again, of an H-1B visa, is that the job being offered must require a degree. The second requirement is that the person must have a bachelor's degree or its equivalent, and we'll talk a little bit about that, that relates to the job. Okay? So, for example, engineers is a pretty good example of this. Years ago, there were a lot of people that didn't get a degree in the 60s and so forth, and they had a lot of practical abilities as an engineer. And they worked as engineers. So what is the equivalent of a degree? Let's say, for example, somebody is working as an engineer. Immigration has what they call the 3-for-1 rule. I guess I'll put the for equivalence. And that is that 3 years of experience in the field equals 1 year towards the degree. So if you are going to show immigration that you have the equivalent of a degree, a 4-year degree, you would need, if you're using the 3-for-1 rule, 3 years of experience equals 1 year. In order to get 4-year degree, you would have to do 3 times 4, which would equal 12 years of work experience. The interesting thing, too, is you could also show that you have perhaps 2 years of college in that area, or 2 years of university, and then towards the degree of education, 2 years of education, and then, using that 3-for-1 rule, you need to make up the other 2 years of education so you can have 6 years of experience, for example. 2 years of education and 6 years of experience could equal a degree as well. The third legal requirement, I guess I'm going to back up again. We're going to go to the second one again. I didn't explain another part of this, which says that the degree has to relate to the job. What does that mean? It means, for example, let's take our civil engineer example. if the engineer's degree is in fine arts, that could be a problem with getting an H-1B. If the engineer's degree is in engineering, then clearly that's not going to be a problem. So, and we do see cases, for example, where people might have a degree in math or physics and be doing IT work, where it could or could not become an issue. But sometimes we're able to get around that issue by showing that the job itself has a lot of mathematics or physics elements that might relate to that person's math or physics degree. So again, the second requirement is the person must have a bachelor's degree, I should say BA or BS, Bachelor of Science, or its equivalent that relates to the job that's being offered. So the third requirement for the job is that the employer must pay what's called the prevailing wage for the job. What does that mean? Pretty much it means that the employer has to consult with different salary surveys. The Department of Labor itself has its own salary survey that it puts out and basically shows different jobs in different cities what is the prevailing wage for that job. One interesting thing to keep in mind is that the job itself only has to require a degree. So the prevailing wage only need be for someone coming out of school with a degree. And it doesn't matter if the person actually has 20 years experience under their belt. If the job itself only is an entry-level job, then the prevailing wage is only the entry-level wage. And I mentioned before there were 3.5 requirements, but before I get to the half, I'll mention that all of my videos can be found on my website, which is www.immigration-professor.com. Or if you need legal advice in any specific case, please call our offices at 310-384-0200. We have locations in California and Illinois, and we also service clients all across the United States. So the last requirement for an H-1B, I'll call it 3A, it's kind of a half requirement, is if the job requires a license for the job, then the person must have the license. This becomes an issue, for example, probably the most common example right now is nurses, where in order to get an H-1B visa as a nurse, for example, the prospective employee actually has to take and pass the licensing exam called the NCLEX, NCLEX in nurse cases, in order to get an H-1B visa and be able to work in the United States. The H-1B visa is a wonderful visa, and it allows somebody to work as a temporary worker for up to 6 years. They can petition for 3 and get another 3. The other nice thing about an H-1B visa is that the person can intend to immigrate. What that means is that when they go to the embassy, they can say to the embassy, I don't intend to come back to my country. I've sold my car, I've sold my house, I'm not leaving. And it's not really an issue. Most other temporary visas require that you demonstrate that you're going to come back. So that's our video about H-1B visas for today. That's part 1, just in terms of the basic legal requirements. You can find all of our videos on my website, which is www.immigration-professor.com. Or please call our offices. We'd love to help you, whether you be an employee or an employer. The number is 310-384-0200. Thank you very much.